So this is just the beginning of the next video that I decided to throw in there. This concept is just the idea of why Hertfordshire Web Design, as a company and as a whole, decided to work with startups and SMEs. The principle behind it is based upon a theory that I came up with some time ago and just threw it out there. It's the again the concept of the analogy. So the idea is working in the different companies in the past and dealing with specific clients and whatnot. What has happened is that we've moved away from focusing on the bigger clients because they are quite, at the moment, few and far between. Not that we won't be dealing with them in the future, but it's just the idea behind why we prefer to focus on startup and SMEs. And the reason behind it is the pioneer mentality. So yeah, the way to see it is almost the way that you would see a western or an old movie. The concept behind it is that in the western, and you've seen some of those small pioneer towns beginning and coming out from nowhere. So what would happen is it would be just like a small one-horse town. And we as Hertfordshire Web Design come to the client, and they are technically a one-horse town, and the way that they've settled their business and their environment is very sort of ramshackled. There might be a well, there might be a saloon, there might be a sheriff's office if there's anything like that. And that comparison and the analogy works in the same sort of principle with startups and SMEs. Is most SMEs, small medium enterprises, tend to be a little bit more established, whereas startups are still scratching their heads with what the principle of web design and web development is and what Hertfordshire Web Design can do for them. So the reason that they come on board or they speak to us is because they want to develop their business a little bit further, make it a little bit more stable, get to the SME stage, and even SMEs want to get to a little bit more of a professional, full-on front-end end. And the way that goes is like this: is you get to the stage where the environment that we prefer to work in is somewhere where it's almost like a blank canvas, but it's almost like we can really do no wrong, but it's not as if we're not professional enough to take it further. It's the idea behind it is making sure that we can start off with a clean slate so that we got a clear idea. Some established companies, SMEs, will already have their ducks in a row, so they'll have the things like the saloon, they'll have the bar, the motel, they'll have maybe even a sheriff's office or whatnot. So the principle works in the same sort of way, where you're able to focus on the stability of all those foundations. So where we take it to the next level, and where we prefer, is to actually extend that pioneer town into something that is a fully fledged city, an environment where, say, the sheriff's office becomes a marshal's office, the communications get brought in, the telephone wires get brought in, the railway gets brought in, the citizens start to roll in, and it starts to grow into a bigger, wider business. And that's the premise behind it, is getting the stability of that environment to a state where it is actually a thriving environment where, strangers come in and out all the time. The bars are always full, the hotels are always full, the sheriff's office is always busy, there's always something to actually do, and the communication's there, instead of becoming almost like a dust bowl, a desert town. And that's where we engineer a way of finding people to actually say that this is a busy town, this is a busy city. And that's the way a website works for us, a way that a SME and startups work for us. It allows us to push forwards the idea of making sure that the foundations of a town is actually settled. And that's pretty much it. It's a very, very simple explanation. But the reason we prefer to work there is at that stage, it starts to become a thriving business. Is we've set the business up to a foundation where an agency can take over to the state where they can start looking after the day-to-day SEO. Not that we won't do that in the future, we will, but it's the idea is they can take the reins and they will actually see what we've stabilized within that thriving city. And of course, that then becomes the idea of working with marketing agencies that work specifically on their email campaigns, agencies that work specifically on their SEO and nothing else, social media and nothing else. Where Hertfordshire Web Design comes in, it works on the holistic, the full picture, getting that environment to from a small shanty town to a small pioneer town to something that's a thriving city. And that's why we prefer to work with startups and SMEs, pretty much in a nutshell. So yeah, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to like us or like this video, and yeah, we'll hopefully be throwing more content like this to get your well, your thinking caps on really, and get an idea of what we can actually do for you. Speak to you soon.